You know, fundraising across state lines, it can feel like a total maze of regulations, right? Well, today, we're going to cut through all that confusion. We'll break down exactly what your nonprofit needs to know about charitable solicitation registration right here in Oklahoma. All right, just so you know, this explainer is part of our whole series on multi-state fundraising compliance. It's where we try to make these really complex topics a lot simpler for you. And this one comes to us from our friends at Ironwood Registrations. They're the experts who really specialize in this stuff. So let's get right to it. The big question you're probably asking is, does my nonprofit need to register to fundraise in Oklahoma? If you're planning to ask for donations from anyone there, the short answer is a definite yes. And here's the kicker. You've got to do it before you even start fundraising. That's a super important point. Okay, let's dive into who must register. We'll start with the fundamentals, right? Like, who's actually in charge of these rules and who do they apply to? Getting this right is really the foundation for staying compliant and, avoiding any headaches down the road. So, in Oklahoma, the agency you'll be dealing with is the Secretary of State. More specifically, it's their Charitable Organizations Section. They're the ones who keep the registry and just make sure everyone's playing by the rules. All right, so who exactly needs to get on that registry? Well, the rule is pretty comprehensive. It doesn't matter if your organization is physically located in Oklahoma and soliciting donations, or if you're based somewhere else entirely, but you're reaching out to people in Oklahoma for contributions. If you're asking Oklahomans, you need to register. And you might be wondering, what exactly counts as solicitation? Well, the state defines it really broadly. It's not just about old-school phone calls or direct mail anymore. We're talking about your online Donate Now button, your email campaigns, social media pushes, even fundraising events. Basically, if you're asking folks in Oklahoma for money in pretty much any of these ways, yep, the state considers that solicitation. Okay, so you figured out you need to register. What's next? What does that process actually look like? Let's walk through the steps for getting that initial registration filed. The state makes it pretty easy, giving you two options. You can file online or do it by mail. You're going to need to gather a few key documents, things like your articles of incorporation and that all-important IRS determination letter. You'll also have to submit a list of your officers, directors, and other key staff. Now let's talk about the fees. Oklahoma keeps it pretty simple with a two-tiered system. If your organization thinks it's going to raise $10,000 or less in contributions for the year, the filing fee is just $15. That's it. On the other hand, if you expect to raise more than $10,000, that fee goes up to $65. And here's something important to remember. These fees aren't a one-time thing. They apply to your initial registration, sure, but also to every single annual renewal you file after that. So getting registered is just the first step, right? To stay in good standing, you've got to renew every single year. And this is where Oklahoma has let's say a very specific way of handling deadlines that you really need to pay attention to. Okay, here it is. This is a key detail, and it's pretty unique to Oklahoma. We're talking about an anniversary-based deadline. Now, a lot of other states tie your renewal date to the end of your fiscal year. Not Oklahoma. Here, you have to renew each year on the anniversary of your initial registration date. This is an absolutely crucial detail to track. And just to make it crystal clear, look at how this works. Let's say you first register in August of 2024. Well, that means your first renewal is due in August of 2025. Your next one, August 2026, and so on. It's a rolling deadline that's completely unique to your organization's start date. Every state has its own little quirks, and Oklahoma is no exception. So in this next part, we're going to cover some of those specific nuances. Things like how they handle extensions, what happens if you file late, and which organizations might not even have to register at all. All right, here are a couple more interesting points about Oklahoma. First, the state does not grant filing extensions, so hitting that anniversary deadline is absolutely critical. But on the other hand, they also don't charge standard late fees. Now, that doesn't mean you should be late. Filing on time is still essential to avoid any other compliance problems. Now, the good news is, not every single organization has to register. This state actually has exemptions for several types of nonprofits, usually to cut down on the paperwork for them. The most common ones you'll see are religious organizations, certain schools, membership groups that only solicit their own members, and any appeals for a specific named individual. And here's the best part about these exemptions. They're automatic. If you qualify, you don't have to file any special paperwork to claim it. That being said, you can voluntarily let the Secretary of State know that you believe you're exempt. That can be a really smart, proactive step to head off any questions they might have down the line. All right, we've covered a lot. So how do you put all this together and manage your compliance effectively year after year? Let's boil it all down into a simple, practical checklist you can use. Okay, number one, and this is the big one, track that anniversary renewal deadline. Like, put it in every calendar you have. 2, always monitor all your fundraising activities in the state. 3, make sure your financial reporting, like your Form 990, is ready to go for your renewal. And finally, number 4, if you are exempt, just check in every once in a while to make sure that status still applies. If you follow these steps, you'll be in great shape. At the end of the day, when you're fundraising in multiple states, it's all about understanding each state's unique rules. And for Oklahoma, that big, unique rule is the anniversary deadline. Getting that one detail right is really the key to staying in good standing and avoiding a compliance crisis that you just don't need. So while Oklahoma's system is pretty straightforward, its unique features, like that deadline, really do require careful management. If your organization could use a hand managing registrations in Oklahoma, or anywhere else for that matter, Ironwood Registrations specializes in exactly this kind of work. You can find out more over at ironwoodregistrations.com.